Living alone gives you freedom and control over your life because it removes the weight of compromise that often comes with relationships. When you are on your own, you don't have to adjust your pace to fit someone else's rhythm. You don't have to apologize for wanting something different, and you don't have to shrink your dreams to match someone else's comfort zone. You wake up every morning with the ability to decide what your day will look like, how you will spend your time, and where you will direct your energy. That kind of control is not just empowering, it's life-changing. When you live alone, you learn how to rely on yourself fully. You don't wait for someone to validate your decisions or reassure you about your path. You trust your instincts, you take responsibility for your mistakes, and you celebrate your victories without needing someone else's applause. That independence strengthens your confidence because you realize that you are capable of creating the life you want without depending on another person. And when you have that kind of freedom, you stop settling for less. You stop clinging to toxic people, unhealthy attachments, and situations that suffocate your spirit, because you know you can stand on your own. Freedom in living alone also means protecting your peace. No arguments over small things. No silent battles where you swallow your truth just to keep the peace. No pretending to be okay when you are not. Your space is yours. If you want silence, you have silence. If you want noise, you create noise. If you want to take risks, chase opportunities, or shift your path completely, there's no one holding you back with fear or doubt. You're free to be unapologetically yourself every single day. That level of peace is something many people in relationships crave but rarely have, because they are always negotiating their happiness against someone else's needs. Living alone also gives you the freedom to focus on your own growth. You can invest your time into your career, your health, your passions, without guilt or distraction. You don't need to explain why you're staying late to finish a project, why you're changing directions, or why you're chasing a dream that others may not understand. You get to design your life without limits. That control allows you to evolve into the best version of yourself, because all your decisions are aligned with your own vision, not someone else's. There's also a unique joy in building your own routine. Living alone means no compromises over schedules, no debates over priorities, and no sacrifices that leave you drained. You can structure your mornings the way you like, fill your evenings with what matters to you, and create rituals that fuel your soul. That sense of ownership over your time is freedom in its purest form, because time is the most valuable currency you have. Another part of this freedom is the ability to protect your energy. Relationships, especially the wrong ones, can drain you emotionally and mentally. They demand constant effort, explanations, and adjustments. When you live alone, you set the boundaries. You decide who comes into your space and who doesn't. You choose which voices influence your mind and which ones are silenced. That selective control over your environment creates space for clarity, focus, and inner strength. Ultimately, living alone puts you in charge of your story. No one else writes your chapters. No one else edits your dreams. No one else sets the pace. You hold the pen, you design the plot, and you decide how the journey unfolds. That kind of freedom and control is rare, and once you experience it, you understand why living alone beats any relationship that takes away your power. Solitude builds strength, clarity, and independence because it strips away the noise and forces you to stand on your own 2 feet. When you are alone, there is no one to lean on, no one to distract you, and no one to take responsibility for your choices. That can feel intimidating at first, but it is exactly what makes you stronger. Strength is not built in comfort, it is built in challenge. Living in solitude teaches you how to depend on yourself, how to solve your own problems, and how to rise after setbacks without waiting for someone else to pick you up. That kind of resilience can only be developed when you experience life on your own terms. Clarity comes from the silence that solitude creates. When you are constantly surrounded by people, opinions, and outside influences, it becomes difficult to hear your own voice. You start to question what you want versus what others want for you. But when you are alone, you create space for your own thoughts. You begin to understand what drives you, what drains you, and what you truly desire. Without distraction, your goals become sharper, your values become clearer, and your vision for the future becomes easier to see. Solitude acts like a mirror. It reflects back who you really are without distortion. Independence is one of the greatest gifts solitude can give you. When you live alone, you are responsible for everything: your bills, your choices, your routine, your future. No one is going to step in and rescue you, and that forces you to grow. Independence is not just about doing things by yourself. It is about trusting yourself enough to know you can handle whatever comes your way. When you experience solitude, you stop waiting for someone else to make life easier. Instead, you realize that you are capable of handling the challenges, and more importantly, that you can thrive without needing to rely on anyone else. There is also a mental toughness that solitude creates. Many people are terrified of being alone because they equate silence with emptiness. But once you embrace solitude, you begin to see that silence is not empty. It is full of opportunity. It gives you the chance to build self-awareness, to heal, to learn, and to grow. It teaches you to sit with your emotions instead of running from them, to face your fears instead of avoiding them, and to create solutions instead of waiting for someone else to fix things. That inner toughness cannot be taken away because it comes from within. Solitude also builds discipline. When you live alone, you are the one who decides whether you succeed or fail. There is no one to push you when you feel lazy, no one to remind you of your responsibilities, no one to encourage you when you lose motivation. That means you learn to hold yourself accountable. You learn to set routines, to push through resistance, and to keep moving forward even when no one is watching. Discipline created in solitude becomes the foundation of long-term success because it is rooted in self-control, not in external validation. The strength, clarity, and independence that come from solitude change how you move in every part of life. You stop fearing rejection because you know you can survive without anyone else. You stop tolerating toxic relationships because you realize that solitude is better than compromise. You stop doubting yourself because you have spent enough time alone to know your own capabilities. Solitude becomes your training ground, the place where you sharpen your mind, harden your spirit, and learn what it means to stand tall without needing anyone to hold you up. Many people settle in relationships out of fear of being alone, and that fear is one of the most dangerous traps a person can fall into. Instead of choosing love out of strength, they choose companionship out of desperation. They convince themselves that having someone, anyone, is better than facing life on their own. But what they don't realize is that settling often costs more than solitude ever will. It costs your peace, your freedom, your growth, and in many cases, your happiness. When you stay in a relationship that does not fulfill you, that does not uplift you, you are trading your potential for comfort, and comfort is temporary. Fear of being alone makes people accept less than they deserve. They put up with toxic behavior, constant disrespect, or emotional neglect because the thought of silence in their homes or emptiness in their beds feels unbearable. They would rather have someone who drains them than have no one at all. But in doing so, they give away their power. They forget that being alone is not a weakness, it is a strength. It is a chance to reclaim their energy, rebuild their confidence, and rediscover who they truly are. Settling, on the other hand, keeps them stuck in cycles of dissatisfaction where growth is impossible. Society plays a role in this too. People are constantly told that being in a relationship is the ultimate measure of success. Movies, traditions, and even families pressure individuals into believing that happiness can only be found in togetherness. That pressure pushes people into commitments they are not ready for, with partners they do not truly align with. They stay, not because it's right, but because they don't want to be judged for being single. This fear-driven settling leads to lives filled with compromise, resentment, and regret. Choosing solitude over such relationships is not just brave, it is essential for living authentically. Another reason people settle is because they underestimate the value of solitude. They see being alone as lonely, but they don't realize that loneliness comes from being disconnected from yourself, not from lacking a partner. When you are in the wrong relationship, you can feel lonelier than if you were completely by yourself. Loneliness in company is far more painful than loneliness in solitude. Living alone gives you the chance to build a relationship with yourself, to strengthen your identity, and to discover that you are already whole without needing someone else to complete you. People also settle because of fear of starting over. They worry that if they leave, they will waste years, that they will never find someone else, that they will miss out on love. But the truth is, staying in the wrong place wastes more time than walking away ever will. Every day you spend settling is a day you lose building the life you truly want. Fear convinces you that it's safer to stay, but safety is not the same as happiness. Safety in a toxic relationship is just another word for stagnation. Growth never comes from settling. Growth comes from choosing yourself, even when it means standing alone. Settling may seem easier in the moment, but it creates long-term pain. You silence your dreams, you bury your needs, and you carry the heavy weight of dissatisfaction. Over time, you begin to lose sight of who you are. You forget your worth, and you convince yourself this is all you'll ever get. But that is a lie fear tells you. The truth is, solitude will always be better than a relationship that limits you. When you choose not to settle, when you embrace being alone, you create the space for real love, real growth, and real happiness to enter your life. Being alone forces you to face yourself and grow because there is no one to distract you from who you truly are. When you live with others, or when you're constantly surrounded by relationships, it's easy to escape into their presence. You can avoid your own insecurities by focusing on their needs, drown out your own silence with their voices, and hide your flaws in the shadow of companionship. But when you are alone, there is no hiding. The mirror is clear and it reflects everything. Your strengths, your weaknesses, your habits, your patterns, and the truths you might not want to admit. That confrontation is uncomfortable, but it is also the foundation of growth. When you are by yourself, you begin to notice things you may have ignored. You notice how you react under pressure, how you handle stress, how you manage your time, and how you respond to setbacks. Without anyone to lean on, you're forced to develop resilience. You learn how to self-soothe when you're anxious, how to motivate yourself when you feel unproductive, and how to lift yourself up when no one else is there to do it. These skills become the pillars of strength that last a lifetime, and they are often built in the quiet moments of solitude. Being alone also gives you the space to identify the patterns that may be holding you back. Many people jump from one relationship to another without ever pausing to ask themselves why things failed, why they feel unfulfilled, or why they keep choosing the wrong people. In solitude, you have no choice but to confront those questions. You realize where you've been settling, where you've been avoiding the truth, and where you've been ignoring your own worth. That level of self-awareness is impossible to achieve if you're always surrounded by noise and distraction. Alone, you uncover lessons that no one else could teach you because they come directly from your own reflection. Growth also happens because solitude forces you to take accountability. When you live alone or spend long stretches of time by yourself, there is no one else to blame for your mistakes or your failures. If you procrastinate, that's on you. If you don't chase your goals, that's your choice. At first, accountability can feel heavy, but over time, it becomes empowering. You begin to understand that your life is fully in your hands. You stop waiting for someone to push you, remind you, or guide you. You become your own motivator, your own disciplinarian, and your own cheerleader. That kind of independence builds confidence like nothing else can. Facing yourself in solitude also reveals your passions and values. Without external influence telling you what's right, what's practical, or what's acceptable, you get to explore freely. You can experiment, try new things, fail, and try again without judgment. You begin to discover what truly makes you happy, what fuels your soul, and what kind of life you want to create. That discovery shapes your identity, and once you know who you are, you stop settling for anything that doesn't align with it. Growth becomes natural because you are finally living in truth instead of pretending to be someone else to please others. There is also a healing power in solitude. When you are alone, you have the time to process past pain, unresolved emotions, and old wounds that relationships often distract you from. Facing yourself means dealing with what you've buried. It means acknowledging the scars, accepting the lessons, and moving forward with wisdom. Growth cannot happen if you keep carrying baggage from the past into every new relationship. Solitude gives you the chance to let go, to rebuild, and to step into the future lighter and stronger than before. In the end, being alone is not about isolation. It's about transformation. It's about giving yourself the time, the silence, and the honesty needed to become the best version of yourself. When you face yourself without fear, you grow into someone who no longer needs validation, who no longer accepts less, and who no longer hides from the truth of who they are. Solitude is not loneliness, it's self-discovery and fulfillment. Too many people confuse the two, thinking that being alone automatically means being empty or sad, but that's far from the truth. Loneliness is a void. It's a craving for connection without having it. Solitude, on the other hand, is a choice. It's a deliberate decision to embrace your own company, to sit with your thoughts, and to find peace in the silence. That difference is powerful because solitude allows you to explore who you are without distraction or outside influence. It is not about what's missing, it's about what you are discovering within yourself. When you embrace solitude, you open the door to self-discovery. In the quiet, you begin to notice your real desires, your passions, and the things that make you feel alive. You start to separate your true voice from the voices of family, friends, or society that may have shaped your decisions before. Without anyone else's expectations hovering over you, you have the freedom to ask, what do I want? What do I value? What makes me happy? Those answers don't come when you're constantly surrounded by others. They come when you slow down, sit still, and truly listen to yourself. Fulfillment in solitude comes from the freedom to live authentically. You no longer have to compromise your time, your energy, or your choices to satisfy someone else's needs. You wake up and build your life on your terms. If you want to spend the day working toward your dreams, you do it. If you want to take time for rest and reflection, you take it. That independence is liberating because it reminds you that your happiness is not dependent on anyone else's presence. Fulfillment is not about being surrounded by people, it's about being aligned with yourself. Solitude also gives you space for creativity and growth. Some of the best ideas, breakthroughs, and solutions are born in moments of quiet reflection. When you are alone, your mind is free to wander, to connect thoughts, and to imagine possibilities without interruption. That mental space allows you to innovate, to dream bigger, and to build a stronger vision for your life. Many of the world's most successful people credit solitude as the time when they found clarity and inspiration. It's not loneliness. It's a powerful tool for growth. Another part of fulfillment comes from the peace solitude brings. When you are alone, there is no conflict, no drama, no emotional chaos that often comes with unhealthy relationships. Instead, there is stillness. That stillness becomes a source of strength because it allows you to recharge, to heal, and to regain balance. You realize that you don't need constant company to feel whole. You can sit in silence and feel content because you've built a relationship with yourself strong enough to keep you grounded. That inner peace is worth more than any forced connection or shallow relationship. Solitude also teaches you self-reliance. The more time you spend with yourself, the more you realize you are capable of handling life on your own. You don't crumble in silence, you thrive in it. You discover that you are enough, that your worth is not tied to someone else's approval, and that your fulfillment doesn't require a partner. This self-reliance becomes unshakable confidence because you stop seeking validation from others. Instead, you find it within yourself. The truth is, loneliness can exist even in a crowded room or in a relationship. But solitude, when embraced with the right mindset, is never lonely. It is empowering, it is enlightening, and it is deeply fulfilling. It's the moment you stop running from silence and start walking toward it with open arms. Because in that silence, you don't just find emptiness, you find yourself, and in finding yourself, you discover a kind of fulfillment no relationship could ever provide. Mastering life alone prevents you from ever settling for less, because once you learn how to stand on your own, you realize your worth is not tied to whether or not someone chooses you. Too often, people accept relationships that drain them, limit them, or fail to honor them simply because they fear the alternative being alone. But when you have already mastered solitude, that fear no longer controls you. You know you can live fully, peacefully, and powerfully without depending on someone else to give your life meaning. That freedom is the foundation of strength because it teaches you to value yourself so deeply that anything less than respect, love, and alignment feels unacceptable. Living alone shows you that you don't need to beg for attention, settle for crumbs of affection, or compromise your standards for the sake of companionship. You learn how to cook for yourself, provide for yourself, build routines that suit you, and create happiness from your own energy. Every time you make it through challenges by yourself, you gain evidence that you are capable of handling life. This evidence builds confidence, and confidence builds standards. Once you know you can thrive alone, you won't be tricked into believing that just having someone is better than having no one. You'd rather wait for real love than accept something half-hearted. Mastering solitude also sharpens your clarity about relationships. You've already spent time with yourself, faced your fears, uncovered your values, and explored your passions. That means you know exactly who you are and what you want. You're no longer looking for a relationship to fill a void or cover up insecurities. Instead, you're looking for a partner who adds value to the life you've already built. That clarity prevents you from being swayed by temporary emotions or empty promises. If someone doesn't meet your standards, you can walk away with peace because you know you don't need them to survive. Another reason solitude protects you from settling is because it redefines your understanding of love. When you master life alone, you experience what it means to love yourself first. You take yourself out, you invest in your growth, you create a home that feels like a sanctuary, and you honor your dreams. That kind of self-love raises the bar for how you allow others to treat you. If someone comes into your life offering less than the love you already give yourself, you will immediately recognize it and refuse to lower your standards. Settling becomes impossible because you are unwilling to sacrifice the peace and fulfillment you've built on your own. Solitude also teaches patience. Many people settle because they are in a rush, desperate to lock down a relationship out of fear of being left behind. But when you've already learned to enjoy your own company, you stop racing against the clock. You understand that waiting for the right person is better than committing to the wrong one. Patience becomes a natural byproduct of your independence, and with patience comes wisdom. The wisdom to see that love should never be forced or rushed, but chosen carefully and intentionally. The most important reason mastering life alone keeps you from settling is that it transforms loneliness into power. Instead of running from silence, you embrace it. Instead of fearing independence, you celebrate it. You are no longer vulnerable to manipulation because no one can threaten to leave you with nothing. You already have everything within yourself. That mindset is unshakable. It allows you to enter relationships as a whole person rather than half a person searching for completion. And when you enter from a place of wholeness, you cannot be convinced to stay where you don't belong. Settling becomes unthinkable because you know solitude is always better than a love that diminishes you. At the heart of it all, living alone is not about rejecting love or pushing people away. It's about building yourself into someone who doesn't depend on relationships for survival or identity. When you live alone, you learn freedom, strength, resilience, and self-respect. You stop fearing solitude because you've discovered its power. It's where growth happens, where healing takes place, and where self-discovery blossoms. And once you've mastered that, you no longer settle for shallow love or connections that weaken you. You know you can stand tall on your own, so any relationship you welcome into your life must be one that adds value, not one that drains it. The truth is, fulfillment doesn't come from another person. It comes from the relationship you have with yourself. Solitude teaches you that you are already whole, already capable, already enough. And when you finally embrace that, you understand why living alone can beat any relationship that isn't aligned with your worth. Because from a place of independence and strength, you never need to chase love, you attract it. And when you do, you'll know it's not out of fear, not out of need, but out of choice. That's the kind of love that's real, and that's the kind worth waiting for.